All right, here we go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Dave here. We're going to do another uh, exercise in my series of basic color color theory. This is just the basics. Color is very complicated, but we're going step by step. This time we're going to do what we call color complement color strings. You get a nice little kick out of this. It's very colorful. But first, I want to go into some of the four main properties of color. One of the first properties is called hue. Now, the hue of a color is simply the name of the color: yellow, red, blue, green, purple, whatever. That's the hue. The next property will be value. Value means the amount, the lightness or darkness of a color. Usually we increase the value by adding white, and we decrease the value by basically adding black or sometimes another lower color on the scale, chromatic shading. But value is the lightness or darkness of a color. Next, we may have chroma. Sometimes called saturation. What that means is the pureness or grayness of a color. When a color comes out of a tube, immediately it's at full chroma or full saturation. That's as fully intense in strength as the color is capable of being. Whenever you mix anything with that color, whether it's white, black, or another color, you automatically decrease the chroma of saturation. As another way of reducing the chroma that we'll get into on down the way, by mixing the color with a neutral gray of the same value. That will decrease that chroma. If you can imagine, say, a yellow shirt right close to you, and the same shirt maybe a half a block away, well, it's not going to be as intense in color. Therefore, to do that, you have to reduce the chroma. And last but not least is color temperature. Yeah. Oh, let's see. I think we got an E there. Temperature. That's right. Temperature is simply, as it states, the warmness or coolness of a color. If you remember our color wheel, we have our warm colors over on this side and our cool colors over on this side. If we drew a straight line and divided the color wheel in half, we would have a warm side and a cool side. Therefore, that every color has a cool and warm hue of that color. And that's what we're going to deal with on these complement color strings. That's one of our first little exercises here. I'll put this one away. Okay. We're going to use our basic color wheel. And basic colors that we're going to use today, we're going to use a warm and a cool of our primary hues. Our first primary hue is yellow. So a cool yellow would be lemon yellow, and a warm yellow would be cadmium yellow deep. Going around the color wheel, our next primary is red. In this particular lesson, we're going to use, for a cool red, we're going to use alizarin crimson. And for a warm red, we're going to use cadmium red light. It has a lot of orange in it. And the next primary is going to be blue. So for a cool blue, we're going to use cobalt. And for a warm blue, we're going to use cerulean. Now for our complements, if you remember, if we look at using the color wheel again, if we go straight down on the color wheel, yellow, the complement of yellow is going to be a violet. So for this particular exercise, for a violet, we're going to use dioxazine purple. This is a cool, dark violet. That's going to be our complementary mix. For red, on the color wheel, if we look at the color wheel again, we go straight across the color wheel, the complement will be green. For this particular exercise, to try my best to get a in-between green, we're going to use Hooker's green. It's not too warm, it's not too cool. And last but not least, for our blue primary, we go right across, the complement will be orange. So we're going to use, for simplicity, instead of doing a lot of mixing, because this is going to be complicated enough, we're keeping it basic and very simple. We're going to use cadmium orange, straight from the tube. So the first thing we're going to do, in order to see our tints when we add white to our colors, I'm going to tone this canvas in kind of with a wash of burnt umber. And once it dries, it'll dry quick because we're using odorless mineral spirits. Therefore, we can see our values a lot better than if we have them straight on a straight white canvas. So for that, I'm going to take some burnt umber and just a minute here. I'm using some burnt umber, just a little bit of burnt umber, and a lot of odorless mineral spirits on my brush. And I'm going to mix a real light value wash using just burnt umber and mineral spirits. So I've got it mixed up here. A lot of mineral spirits. We want this real, the consistency of like watercolor. So we want a nice bit of mineral spirits. And for this exercise, I'm going to take a regular dirty rag that I've used before. As you can see, this is my mix of burnt umber, a burnt umber wash. You see the consistency. It's actually running, it's so wet. A lot of mineral spirits. And I'm going over this canvas as such. Now I'm going to use a little bit more mineral spirits. Really lighten it up some. Cover the whole canvas. Going all the way down on the canvas. Just a nice, even tone. Don't worry about a few little streaks in it. This will dry in a few minutes. Okay, we got that. Let it dry. Now, while that's drying, complements are, of course, straight across from each other, as I said before, on the color wheel, and complements either help each other as far as being attractive, having one color next to the other, or as you add one complement to the next, you actually reduce the chroma of that color. Also, you can change the value somewhat, and sometimes the temperature actually changes. But the main thing is to neutralize it or reduce the chroma. And we're going to do some what I call color strings, where we're going to do our first one is going to be, we're going to use, the first one is going to be a cool yellow, and that's going to be versus the violet. And then our next color string is going to be a warm yellow versus the same violet. So you can see the difference in the two different temperatures of a primary. This will be dry in just a few seconds, so it doesn't take that long. We'll be able to proceed. We want a tone canvas so we can see the tints when we add white. You can't see them that good on a white canvas. Okay, we're about dry already. Yep, seems to be dry already. Now, this time for mixing on this vertical surface, instead of using the palette knife, which in this situation is kind of awkward, I'm going to use my brush. As you'll see, we're going to put, first thing we're going to do is we're going to put some lemon yellow on one side. A tube of lemon yellow here. This is our first primary, and it's the cool yellow. I'm going to put lemon yellow. Put a nice little bit. Yep, I got it up too high. I'll break it down some. I'm going to bring it down using my palette knife this time. I want it down here. Yeah, about right here. About right there. A little bit on the brush, okay. Now that's my first primary. Now the complement is going to be a violet, so we're using dioxazine purple. And we're going to put that over here. Now these are complements. So I'm going to take one brush. As I said before, I like to use a number 8, a Scholastic Wonder White Bright. I like the number 8s. First thing I'm going to do is put some yellow over this way. Nice little bit of yellow over this in this direction. Wipe the brush off just a little bit on my actual cloth, and take some of this violet. Start putting it this way, in this direction. Now it's very obvious the violet is going to be pretty strong as we move it over. I find this circular motion really helps a lot. And I want to put some yellow into the violet. And if I have a little bit too much on the brush, in this situation, I can just put it right here. Now I'll wipe a little bit off. Let's take some of this yellow and add right in this general area right here. We don't want to go all the way over. We want to keep the ends pure. The main thing is to see a transition from the pure color at one end and the pure color at the other end. And in between, you want a good gradual mix of colors.